And a bit of an introduction to this session. I'm just kind of going to set some frameworks here. So why do social media advertising to begin with? It is where your prospects are. About half of the planet's population uses social media, and 79% of the US population uses social media. So it's a great way to get in front of your prospects, no matter who they are. It's great to target and retarget your ideal customers with tons of different audience options across all the different platforms. It is a must for brand awareness. And also there are numerous ad formats to really get creative with your branding while you're putting your name out there and really trying to grab those customers. There's tons of different options and it's just a lot of fun to play around with. So where does it fit within your marketing mix? A few things to understand is that the user intent is very different than with paid search ads on Google or Bing. Just to set the differentiation there, with search, those are people who are actively searching for a particular product or service. On social, it's not based on active searches, it's more demographic, interest-based, things like that. And also the user interaction with social is very different than with display advertising. In social, particularly really across all of the channels, the ads kind of flow streamlessly through the feed, whereas in display, I'm sure we've all been reading an article and there's just like all these different display ads popped around everywhere that seem to kind of interrupt your user experience sometimes. With social, it just blends seamlessly into your scrolling, which is nice. And then also, what platforms are best for your brand? There's a few different things to consider. With Facebook and Instagram, this is where you are going to reach the most people. It has the most active users. They are the top 2 of users in social platforms in the US by users. They're why I lumped them together here. Facebook owns Instagram, if you weren't familiar. So building the ads is the exact same in the back end. That's why I grouped the 2 there. It's also where your competition is. So you want to make sure you are differentiating yourself from your competition and that your competition isn't getting the leg up on you. With Pinterest, that's going to be best for highly visual, more e-com brands. Think home decor, food, fashion, things like that, something you can really build a visual story around. LinkedIn, sure this is not a surprise for anybody, but it's going to be best for your B2B. It's great for targeting around job titles, people who work at specific companies, things like that. So if you have a B2B brand, LinkedIn is going to be the place to go. And with Twitter, it's great for growing brand awareness. And another thing to consider with these platforms, you also want to maybe do a little research into the demographics. So say, for example, Facebook, that's about 54% female, Instagram is 51%, Pinterest is 70% female, and then LinkedIn and Twitter is about a 50-50 split. So that's something else to be aware of, as well as like age breakdowns and things like that. So just also a note here, as we move through this presentation, I will be referring to Facebook because it is most predominant of the social platforms, but these concepts can be applied to all of them. So this isn't a Facebook only presentation, though I'm saying Facebook because it is the most prevalent and kind of your most bang for your buck platform. So also, what does a successful campaign look like? It uses proper tracking. It separates out your prospecting and your remarketing goals because they are very different audiences. It takes time to mature and really find the sweet spot. It separates out ad placements, and it targets and tailors the ad copy to the user's place in the buyer journey. We will be covering all of this throughout the presentation. Also, you know, a lot of people think a social campaign cannot be ROAS positive. It can. I've done it. It works. So let me help you. All right. So first things first, we are going to talk about the setup process. So this is the tracking that I mentioned earlier. So the fantasy is that the base Facebook pixel is going to track everything you need and it's all going to go awesome. But really, you need to do some customized tracking so that you can get the best data, so you can add specific tracking for add to carts and things like that. Another fantasy is that Facebook's conversion numbers are exactly accurate all the time. The reality is that you need a proper Google Analytics setup to be able to really track those direct conversions. And you really want to make sure you are tracking everything. You will feel like Charlie while you're doing this. It's a lot. There's a lot of wires to connect. Do you really need all those pages? You really do. So getting started in the setup process, we're going to talk about placing the pixel, connecting a products catalog if you do have a products catalog, setting up some custom conversions, and also setting up that proper Google Analytics tracking. So with pixel placement, you want to make sure that every page of your site at least has the page view pixel. And I will tell you why in a minute, but that's kind of, that page view pixel is about the baseline pixel. And if there are any calls to action on your pages, such as an add to cart button, a sign up button, if you have a button, put some tracking on it. And as I said, there are many different types of pixels, really ranging from basically anything you can imagine there being on a website, and so just finding what works for your website, for your business, for your goals, and just making sure you are tracking everything. And if you have a product that has a dollar amount to it, your goal is revenue, you're going to want to make sure you're also setting up the dynamic conversion values pixel. So what that will do is it really tells the story of how much revenue your campaigns are assisting in and contributing to, and why I prefer to use the dynamic. There's a couple different types of conversion pixels, but I like the dynamic because it really does, you know, if you have products that are ranging in prices, it sums them all together. And that way, at the end of the campaign, you can say, this is how much money our campaigns assisted in or drove directly, which is exactly what you want to report on. So definitely recommend that one as well. And then connecting your products catalog. There are two ways to do it, either a manual upload or you can set automatic updates. Only go the manual route if you never have an issue with inventory, your prices never change, and you aren't steadily adding new products, because you would have to do a manual upload every time anything, you know, if an item goes out of stock, you'd have to re-upload your entire product feed again. if your prices change, you have to manually redo it. So you can find all of the bits of code that you need in the back end of Facebook, and you just kind of like plug it in, and it just keeps that updated so you don't have to worry about possibly advertising a product that is out of stock or advertising something with the wrong price. It just eliminates any human error there, so automatic is the way to go. It also allows you to do dynamic retargeting. I'm sure if any of you have ever been on Facebook and Instagram, which I'm pretty sure 99.9% of you have been, we've all gotten the ads. You were looking at a shirt on a site, and then there it is in your feed. That is the product catalog connection is what makes that happen. So you want to connect that to get the dynamic remarketing, and it will also, if your brand has a Instagram account, it will allow your Instagram to be shoppable. Not only can you tag products, but now there is like a full shop button on Instagram profiles now that you just click, and it just takes people to the products. It's awesome. I was very happy when Facebook launched that recently. And then setting up custom conversions. So what I do is I set up the page view conversion on every single page of your site. What that does is when you start to get results, so it could even be if you set your results to link clicks, it could be that. In the case of the screenshot here, I have it as purchases. You hover over the number of results, and then it pops up this lovely list of everywhere people went on your site from your ad. So, and it can provide some really great learnings. In the example of this screenshot here, I got a client that, as you can probably guess, sells coffee. And they were saying, oh, nobody is really interested in the merch section. Let's not push the merch. No, like just leave that alone, focus on the coffee. I'm able to see here, well, actually people are actually very engaged in the merch section. So maybe they're more interested in the merch than you think they are. So this triggers me to go and do a deep dive to see what products people are buying and create some future testing opportunities. So it can provide lots of great insights just by seeing where people go on your site from your ads. It can be something you never thought people would be interested in, and you can get some great learnings that way. And then Google Analytics. So if you've run Facebook ads in the past, you have probably seen that Facebook's numbers and Google's numbers are very different when it comes to your conversions. Facebook defaults to a view-through attribution model. There are ways to change the attribution view in Facebook, but I've still never, it doesn't work 100% of the time, so I have trust issues with it. I've had clients, it matches 1-to-1, and then I've had situations where it is 0 in Facebook and 20 in Google. So setting up a custom channel in your Google Analytics will help you track are your direct conversions, so your last click conversions. The Facebook number are their ads that people, they've been scrolling, they saw your ad, and then eventually somewhere down the line purchased. So they saw your ad, didn't even have to click it. Then maybe they they searched your product, clicked a Google ad, and then maybe went back and went to your website directly and then purchased. Facebook kind of claims dibs over that purchase, which is nice to know how it's assisting, but it can over-report. So by setting up a custom channel in your Google Analytics, you're able to track those direct conversions. And I will walk you through how to do that right now. So give me 1 second. Let me pull over my GA account here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
So when you are in, you get into your Google Analytics, and what you do is you go down here to the admin gear, and then you click that, and then your computer thinks about it for a very long time because you're screen sharing during the workshop. And then from there, you go over here to this third column, and you go to channel settings, and then you go to channel grouping and click that. And then I go into the default channel grouping, and then click define a new channel. And we're gonna call this paid social. So from there, we are going to track our source mediums. So you click this little down arrow, and we're gonna break out source and source medium into 2 different chunks here. So we're gonna start with source, and we're gonna make exactly matches. And this is, we're gonna get into this, but this is where UTM tags come into play. What I personally do is I make the source whatever platform I'm advertising on, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, whichever. And then I make the medium paid + social. You can do paid - social, really whatever your heart desires your medium can be. I do not recommend using CPC because that could get accidentally pulled into your paid search efforts unless you go in and also like edit the channel grouping for the paid search channel. So just for ease and not having to go back and change things later, just don't use CPC, it's fine. So what I'll do here is we're gonna make one Facebook or Instagram, or we'll say Twitter for this guy. And then you want to put the and medium exactly matches, and then whatever you want your medium to be. So we're gonna do paid + social. And if you really want to cover your bases and possibly avoid any human error, you can create versions where you maybe put a typo in, that way it still gets pulled into the right, into the proper channel. So maybe we make this paid - social. Maybe you spell social wrong. So I like to go in just to like cover my bases, because if you, for example, if you lowercase Facebook in the channel, but you capitalize it, when you put the UTM tag on, it will pull into the other channel, which is kind of the catch-all bucket when Google's like, I don't know what to do with this, so it puts it in the other. So you just want to make sure you're being consistent with your tagging throughout. And as I said, I will talk about UTM tagging in a bit. And then once you have all of your rules here, you would just click done. And then from that point on, every session that comes in, every conversion that comes in from your social ads will get pulled into that channel. And that way, when you pop into GA, you can just look at that line item and not have to go digging through things, and it will just make your life a whole lot easier. So that is the Google Analytics promotion. So as Maggie said, we're doing a little Q&A between each section. So anybody have any questions? So now we get into the build process, which is, that setup was a lot. Build's a lot. So the fantasy scenario is you can run the same ad across all audiences and it will perform amazingly. What you need to do is really craft your ads to speak to the specific stages along the customer journey. You also, Facebook will tell you it recommends automatic placements. You really, really need to tailor your ads for specific placements on Facebook, and LinkedIn's the same way. They have different ad types. Also, images are secondary. They're fun, like it's whatever. They don't really impact clicks or anything. Like, no, you need to grab your audience's attention with dynamic ad creative. Think about how many times you've just been like sitting mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. You want to be able to grab somebody's attention and make them care about you and like stop scrolling and actually look at your ad and engage with your ad. And I'm going to tell you how to do all of that. All right. So first off, we're going to start with audience identification. Then, as I mentioned, the important selecting placements, writing the ad copy, choosing the creative, and then those UTM tags I talked about. So a tale of two goals, prospecting and remarketing. They have very different goals because they have very different levels of brand knowledge. In the prospecting bucket, these are people who are brand new to you. They've never interacted with your site before, never interacted with you at all. These are brand new folks. The best way to identify these people, highly recommend creating lookalike audiences. If you have an email list for anything, signups, purchases, what have you, you can build a lookalike audience off of it. You can build a lookalike audience off of different activity on your site. Excuse me. So highly recommend lookalike audiences. Facebook, if you dig around a little bit, you can find something called the Audience Insights feature. This I nerd out on because it will give you levels of knowledge about the people who like your Facebook page that you would have never thought of. For example, I had a client who sold kits to help teach children how to learn to code. And when I went into the back end, into their Audience Insights feature, you can see everything from their level of education, whether they're married, what other Facebook pages and other interests they have. So I know that these people are interested in Boar's Head cheese and Blue Diamond almonds and things like that. So this is just a fun tool to identify potential new audiences. If you run out of ideas of audiences to target, highly recommend going and playing around in there. Also, just building target personas, so who you think your key demographic is. How old are they? Where do they live? Do they have kids? What are they interested in? What magazines do they read? What potential problems could your product solve? And then also, last but certainly not least, competitor targeting. 100% target your competitors. You can't name them by name, but you can go after the people who are interested in them, and I highly recommend that one. And then also with the prospecting audience, the copy should be a bit more awareness-based and revolve around a value proposition. Like I said, these are brand new people to you. You have to tell them why, who they should care about you, who you are. So yeah, definitely more awareness. The your brand's difference sort of copy. With the remarketing, these are people who do know about you. So they've visited your site, they've provided an email, but maybe haven't converted, maybe haven't purchased a product. They've engaged with you on social media before. Maybe they did add something to their cart, but abandoned it. And then it's also great for re-engaging past customers who maybe haven't purchased in a while, just to remind them like, hey, we're still here. You wanna buy something? And with those audiences, you can be more heavy-handed with the sales message because they are already aware of you. You can be a bit more direct with your sales language. And how I like to think of it is the prospecting audience, that's the more audience. So learn more, watch more, see a menu, send a message via Facebook Messenger, get them to engage with you more. And then the remarketing bucket, those are the now people. So shop now, call now, apply now, download. So you want to make sure that your calls to action are speaking to where the customers are in their journey. And with that, you want to make sure you're also picking your placement correctly. Not all placements are created equal at all. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. Do not use automatic placements. There are over 20 different options in Facebook Ads Manager alone. And when you select automatic placement, it selects them all. So in each of those placements, they have their own specific requirements. They have different image dimensions, different bits of copy show up. So you really want to make sure that your audience, your user, is getting like the optimal experience with your brand. So to break all of these placements out, I wouldn't recommend doing all 20, that's a lot, but pick some of the ones that work best for you. So maybe you just do a Facebook feed and an Instagram feed, or a messenger ad. But the real point I'm trying to get across is making sure that you are tailoring the experience around the dimensions of each placement. Again, another, we've all seen it. You just get an Instagram ad or a Facebook ad, and you're like, ugh, like, did anybody proof this? So you don't want to be that guy. And also, different placements convert differently. One thing to be highly aware of is that the algorithm, the almighty algorithm, doesn't define success by your goal. So whether it's a purchase or a sign up, it defines success by likes. So what it will do is it will push more budget towards the ad that's getting more likes. This is one of the reasons I break out Facebook and Instagram, because Instagram will suck up all your money if you don't separate them out into their own ad sets, because people are typically more engaged on Instagram, liking your ad and things like that. So Facebook will be like, oh, people like this, let's give this more money, even though that ad might not be converting at all. So it's good to keep them broken out, just because it also allows you to have more control over how you're spending your money and where you're spending your money, and making sure you're making those decisions wisely.
And Karen, I have a clarification really quickly. So when you say placement, and I know there are 20, so don't go through all of them, but do you mean is like Facebook versus Instagram placement, or the Instagram, your feed versus the Discover feed? Like, how do you differentiate that, and what do you exactly mean by placement?
Both things.
Okay.
So with the automatic placement, it will select every possible placement for Facebook and every possible placement for Instagram. And so you need to be cautious of where you're showing up. So within those umbrellas, yes, there's the Facebook news feed that we all know and love, Facebook stories, the right bar. It also has the in-network option, which pushes your ad to apps. So it's kind of like Facebook's version of display advertising. And then there's also like a video option where it'll put your ad into a video that somebody might be playing. And then the same thing over on Instagram. You can show up on the feed, in the story, on the Discover page. So that's what I mean by placement. If we have a question, I can pull up what it all looks like. But maybe we do that in the question and the Q&A bit.
I think that's a good idea.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So writing the copy. You want to make sure you're adding personalization to your messaging. If your company is hyper-local to a specific city, talking about that city. If you're doing geo-targeting and you're targeting people who live near beaches, you can talk about that. Just so that people, adding that personalization just kind of humanizes you and makes people like feel warm feelings about your brand, and not like they're just getting a stock ad, even though they might be getting a stock ad. And one thing you want to address in the copy as well is what problem does your product solve? A great way to do this is to apply what's called the jobs to be done framework. This isn't exactly what your ad copy would be, but it helps kind of get your gears turning to figure out how to address this problem that your product can solve. So when blank, help me blank so I can blank. So for example, if you're selling protein powder, when I'm done with my workout, help me recover quickly so I can perform better or work out tomorrow. So applying this framework really just kind of helps get the gears rolling and get your kind of creative juices flowing. Because sometimes, like I personally love writing copy, but for a lot of people and on an off day, writing, as Lisa Simpson's saying here, writing is the hardest thing ever sometimes. Trying to figure out creative ways to talk about your brand can be tough. So applying this jobs to be done framework can really help get those creative juices flowing. We also have a blog for that, so it's linked here. Feel free to check it out once Maggie sends the deck out. And also you want to conduct ad copy testing to find out what your audience is responding to the most. And we'll talk about testing in a bit too. So choosing the ad creative. As I said, you want something that's engaging. Great ways to do that are video ads. Video has always performed well for me, as there are a few guidelines, so keep it short, 15 to 30-ish seconds. Can be played without sound, and have your brand visible like right away. You don't want to bury the lead of what your brand is. You want to put it right up front. If you don't have any videos, it's totally fine. Facebook allows you to build your own using the slideshow feature, which is great. You can select different images, put your logo in, put some copy on it, and they just look really nice. And it's a great way to work around if you have limited creative resources. I totally get that not every company can afford to go and do these video shoots and have them edited and do all of this. So Facebook is helping us out here by adding this slideshow feature. Another great ad type are carousel ads. So that's when you get multiple images and you can swipe through. Those are always do well. If you're going to go the single image route or even the carousel, lifestyle / aspirational images are always great. So if you are selling furniture, for example, instead of having your image just be like the product image with the white background and then the sofa right there, have your image be this beautiful living room and it's so nice and there's art on the walls, and so that people look at it and they're like, oh man, I really want my living room to look like that. Let me go check this brand out. So you want that like aspirational kind of vibe to your images. So as I said, limit the kind of product image, the classic white background. Unless you're doing dynamic remarketing, then that's fine. They're automatically pulling in from the site anyways. And it does allow people to be like, oh, I did look at those 5 things, so I'll go and buy those shoes now. Also, you know, like I said, just like with the video, sometimes you're on a shoestring budget and you don't have the bandwidth to go and have like a full photo shoot with your products. Sometimes you can't really get around it, but if you can, don't be afraid to use stock images. I know stock images can be incredibly cringy sometimes, but in the back end of Facebook in particular, Facebook, Instagram, they have a deal with either iStock or Shutterstock, I forget which one, but one of the like main stock photo providers, and you have access to so many different stock images that are free that you would normally have to go and buy and then like download. So don't be afraid to use stock images. Some stock images, you know, have a bad rap that they deserve, but there's some actually really good ones out there. So don't be afraid to go looking. And then just like the copy, test your images to see what really resonates with your audience. And now on the note of testing. So, oh, I actually talked about that later. Never mind, getting ahead of myself. All right, UTM tags, we talked about before. Always UTM tag, use UTM tags while building your ads. So the tag should mimic what's in that channel we just built. And I break down how to use it here, which I kind of did before. So source is the platform your ads are running on. For medium, like I said, I use Paid Plus Social. And then in campaign, so like this bit here, you can do something like June 2020 remarketing. If you want to get more granular, you can put in like June 2020 remarketing ad 1, and then you can find out exactly which ads are pulling in the conversions. There's multiple ways to do UTM tags. Facebook has a tagger in the back end that you can use. I use a Chrome plugin, which is the screenshot here. There's different websites that will build UTM tags. And what it does,
Karen, I just shared one. I just shared a builder in the chat. So if people want to follow along.
Thank you. And what it does, it just like pops a little bit of code at the end of the URL that you're driving your traffic to. That just puts that tracking on there. It doesn't affect the user experience, doesn't affect your site at all. It's just for Google. Okay. Any questions? All right, awesome. Great questions, guys. This is great. Okay, so analyzing. So this is where we're going to talk about a lot of the testing bits. So the fantasy is that all audiences should be measured by the same metrics when, like I said before, each audience type has their own goals. So therefore, you need to look at different metrics. The other fantasy is that you only need to run one ad. Please don't do this if you can. A/B testing is great, but there's also the fantasy that you can just test a whole bunch of stuff at once. Keeping something constant with your ad and then testing different variables is a great way to get more pure results when you go back and analyze. That constant could be copy with 3 different image options, or it could be one image with 3 different copy options, just whichever one you want to test, really. So, analyzing audience performance and ad performance. So, with evaluating your audiences, as I said, not all audiences perform the same. Prospecting audiences are great for driving traffic to your site. Sometimes might not be great at converting because they are those new folks to your site. They don't know you yet. They don't trust you yet. So the key metrics I keep an eye on with these folks are things like click-through rate and cost per click. And those people who are clicking through, they're also feeding into that remarketing bucket that we talked about. And those folks, you may have a real low click-through rate, but all of the conversions. So there you're gonna want to look at different metrics like conversions and cost per acquisitions, or in Facebook Ads Manager speak, cost per result is how they term it in there. One thing to definitely keep an eye on is your ad or your frequency. So I don't like to get a frequency over a 4 or a 5. So this happens a lot with audiences that are smaller in size. Typically, those will happen, the frequency will be an issue with your remarketing audience, especially if you're new and haven't had a ton of traffic to your site yet. Or if you are doing a hyper-localized campaign around, say something small like a mile or 2 around a specific street address. And why that frequency matters and you don't want it to get too high is you will hit ad fatigue so quickly. Again, scrolling through social, you've probably had the situation where you're like, I keep seeing the same ad over and over and over again. That is a too high of an ad frequency situation. And you're like, and then you go and you hide the ad. There's a little option to like little carrot, click it, hide ad. You don't want people doing that to your ads because it will ding your ad performance. So the algorithm sees that your ads are getting hidden all the time. It says, oh, people have negative feelings about this ad. I'm gonna either way reduce the spend or just turn it off altogether. And when you do, I think we talked about this in optimizations, getting ahead of myself again, sorry guys. So how I go about not hitting a high frequency. So the frequency is how many times people are seeing your ad, how many impressions they're getting in a day. It's an average, and there's a way to there's a way to put in a frequency cap in Ads Manager, but it goes off average, not per user, where I believe Maggie or somebody, please correct me if I'm wrong with the search part that I'm about to say, but you can put that same cap in search ads and it's like by person. this, in Facebook, it's an average. So I might get say I put a cap of 5 on, I might get 5 ads in a day. Maggie might get 1, someone else might get 3. So it doesn't regulate across everyone. It just goes off the average. How you can not have this happen. Keep a small to modest budget with your audience. So Facebook is a pay per impression model. You can put in, your cost per click goals, but it doesn't affect their model of how they push out ads. And what they want to do is they want to spend your money. So if you have a audience of 200 people and you put a $2,000 budget on it, Facebook is like, all right, let's go, and just like cranks out your ad as much as possible to spend your money. So look at your audience size and regulate your budget accordingly. You'll know really quick if you've put too much budget. I've seen ads hit an 18 frequency overnight. So just a lot of expectation management with that, and just maybe adding budget like a little bit at a time is a workaround I've developed. So you set your ad set to run for the whole duration, and instead of putting your lifetime budget with your total budget you want to spend, I kind of break it out into smaller chunks and add a little bit so it paces it slower. I don't think Facebook wants me knowing this secret, but it works. So don't tell Facebook that I told you. But that's the best way that I found to help like regulate that spend issue. And I can already tell we're gonna have a lot of questions about frequency, so we'll get there. And then evaluating your ads themselves. So things to look at, mainly I go by like click-through rate, but also, definitely want to look at conversions and engagement. From there, when you're doing the A/B testing, you'll find your winner. So I typically don't, depending on the audience size, I will do 2 to 3 ad variants per audience. And like I said, keep one thing consistent and then change up the other bit. So typically what I'll do, especially if I'm starting something like from scratch, I will leave an image the same and test out different copy options when I'm really trying to find the real messaging that resonates with the audience. It's like my first go in the A/B testing, or ABC testing if you do 3. And from there you'll get your winner of the month or whatever your time frame is, and that can help you base other testing opportunities around. So maybe if you were testing copy that time, maybe you use you take the winning copy, and then your next month, your next round of ads, you keep that winning copy and then test out different images with it. Really what you're trying to do is suss out that like sweet spot that like, I know if I do this type of copy with this type of ad, I'm going to get the results I want. That's where that kind of like finding the sweet spot, taking some time to mature really comes in. It takes especially when you're starting from scratch, it takes a lot of testing to be able to find your like top tier stuff. Just some benchmarks to keep in mind here while creating your ads. So I broke it down to audience averages and industry averages just to kind of know what to expect while you're running these ads. This source article that I linked here goes in way more in depth into these averages with way more industries. I just pulled out kind of the most common ones that you typically will see on social. So that's a great resource there. Feel free to click that. Like I said before, with the prospecting versus remarketing, you're going to see a great click-through rate with a real low CPC, and that will look completely different than your remarketing audience. So if you have a remarketing audience or some remarketing ads and the clicks just aren't happening, but they're converting, that's the part you really care about. So don't be discouraged or think like, oh no, I need to completely rebuild this. What am I doing wrong? As long as you're getting the conversions and you're getting like the revenue you want and you're seeing the results, it's fine. It can have a low click-through rate. Conversely, if you're seeing prospecting ads that have a really low click-through rate, you're going to want to look at the data and see kind of where you can improve, which we'll talk about in the next section. So, questions? All right, so now to the optimized portion. The fantasy is you can just set it and forget it, just build the ad, let it ride, and it'll perform great. No, you need to monitor performance regularly. And another misconception is that you should be optimizing every day, making tweaks every day. You need to allow the ad to run to ensure one, correct data, and that you're actually getting the impressions that you need to get the clicks that will get the purchases. So for optimizing your campaigns, like I said, you can over-optimize by constantly making changes. You aren't giving your campaign time to gain traction. So there is, we kind of touched on it before with the learning limited question. There is the learning phase of the ad where Facebook is kind of just figuring your ad out. Where should it go? How, like, what type of people are engaging with it, so they know who to pump your ad out to. By constantly making tweaks, you're starting over every time you make an edit. So just let it ride for, again, I'm sorry, it depends. Let it ride for a few days. It really kind of depends. It depends on what your campaign is. If you're running a promotion that's, we're doing this push over these 3 days, you may not really have a lot of time to turn a bunch of buttons and change a bunch of things in the run of your campaign. But if it's just like a regular month, you're just doing your kind of normal marketing, I say let things run for about a minimum of 5 days before you start tweaking things. Typically, I like to get about like a week and a half-ish, unless like you go in and something is just like, we're getting 0 clicks for everything, then 100% go in and edit, like see what's happening there. But you need to give the time for things to run and for kind of, like I said, Facebook to figure out where you should go. But also don't neglect your campaign. I do health checks on all of my campaigns every day, just to make sure things are running as they should be, things are spending, clicks are happening. Facebook glitches a lot. LinkedIn glitches. Glitches happen. You want to make sure you're going in and performing these health checks so that when reporting time comes, you're not sat there like, oh no, it spent $1. We got no clicks. So just to avoid any panic and your own sanity, just going in, making sure things, are still running. Just I do it every day, but like I have established, I'm a control freak. So yeah, just going in, making sure things are still spending hasn't slowed at all, no glitches are happening, things like that. Also, by kind of doing everything we've talked about leading up to now, it should make finding what the pieces you need to optimize, it should make identifying those easier. You know, I used the example of if you're testing 3 images with the same ad copy, you'll be able to determine your winners and your losers for the month. You know, you could run into a situation like I put here where your ads are driving tons of traffic to the site, you have amazing click-through rate, everything looks beautiful when you are in Facebook, but there's no conversions coming in. Sometimes you need to look at the site itself. I know, kind of depending where you are in your company, you might not have a ton of input on, you know, you won't be able to make the changes yourself. But one thing that I see kind of happen time and time again is that the landing page could have a bad mobile experience. 91% of social media users use social media on a mobile device. So if your site, and particularly your landing page, isn't mobile optimized, people are gonna bounce, they're gonna head out and won't be converting. So just ensuring that your site is also optimized is a big portion of this as well, because you can crank as much traffic as you can to a site, but if the site has issues, you're not going to get the conversions. So the two really do need each other and go hand in hand if you want to really have a great campaign. All right. That's it for the optimize portion. Any questions? So what's next? We offer social media marketing. I'm here. We also offer various different channels. Feel free to reach out for any of your marketing needs. We also have a bunch of more workshops coming up. We have another one this week, got one next week. Here's a list of the ones for the next couple months. But this link up in the top will send you to all of our other awesome workshops to participate in. They're all great. Everyone is super smart. Yeah, and there's my email. Feel free to drop me a line, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to help.